Hi, Lori.
Hey,
Hi,
man.
everybody. Hi,
Nice.
Matt Miller, culture editor at onmilwaukee.com. I am joined, as always, by Lori, food editor at onmilwaukee.com. How are you doing tonight, Lori?
I'm good. It's been a long, long day, though.
It's been a. You know what? This weather, if you didn't have seasonal disorder before this winter, I think everyone's got it this winter. I think everyone's
Yeah.
full on stuck in the snow.
I just need a nap.
Well, really, it's like 8:15, so you can have the best nap of all, known as sleep.
That's true. The longest winter nap.
The longest
So,
nap.
but I didn't nap through tonight's show.
No, Adam had a big night tonight. It was, I gotta say, we said he got a little spicy last week. He got a little bit spicier this week.
He was on the spicy train for sure.
And he dropped the ultimate reality show line.
Yeah.
Everyone, it's official. Adam's not here to make friends.
No. And that's exactly what he said. Yeah, I mean,
I mean, Adam's been so nice and so generally, he was kind of off the pay, like he was not an issue on the show for the first several weeks, and now 2 weeks in a row, he's a little sassy boy. He's a little sassy pants.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's kind of interesting. There's a lot of interesting stuff, I think, that happened on the show today.
A lot, and I will say, I was nervous for Adam this week. This was one of the weeks that I was like, Adam could go home because he got yelled at by Ramsey in the service, and we'll get to that. But first, he did not do well in the taste test challenge, the food test challenge, which was the first half of the episode.
Now, granted, like this was I think this was a pretty difficult challenge. I mean, you're under time limits. You have, I think, what was it? 6 surf and turf dishes.
3 plates, 2 surf and turfs per each. So you had to identify 6 kind of disguised surf, 1 turf for each plate.
And all of the proteins were disguised as like typical surf and turf type things, but they were not what you would expect.
Yeah. So the first plate was, I believe, pork and oysters, but the oysters were mussels. It was mussels.
Yes, pork. It was chicken.
No, it was pork.
Pork and mussels, but the mussels were in clamshells on the plate.
Yeah, and the pork was breaded, and it looked like chicken tenders. And it was weird that no one bothered to seemingly taste the food. Like a lot of people just kind of poked at it at first, and they were like, "Seems like chicken."
I feel like when like especially the proteins that were looking like breaded fish, I think that's really, really hard because in order to really like taste something, you have to concentrate, and it takes a minute. And when you don't have a minute, like you're like, okay, what's that texture? How am I like? And I think the panic that you get when you can't quite identify what it is, and when there's like 20 proteins sitting on the counter, and like 4 different kinds of fowl and like 3 different kinds of shellfish and some crab, and I think it's tough.
This was always the big Top Chef challenge. It's not exactly this, but there was always a Top Chef challenge where it was a blind tasting essentially, and they had to identify spices and they had to identify ingredients. So this is kind of the Hell's Kitchen version of that. And the guys, so the girls team or the red team went first, and they put up a time I think of about 8.5 minutes.
It was 8 minutes and 46 seconds.
Yes, thank you. You take better notes than I do. And then, so the guys had that amount of time to do, and Adam was paired up for the last plate with Declan, who Declan did crappy.
Declan went up twice and was like freaking out both times. And like, a protein would be wrong, and he'd go back to the thing and pick the other protein that had been wrong. Like he was totally freaked out by the time limits.
And I don't want to be mean here, but Declan is a larger guy, and this is a timed test. Maybe someone with, someone getting back and forth a little bit faster, because watching him was exhausting me. Like, I was just like, this. If you are in a speed competition, why would you put him up twice? He was bad at it, and
I did not get why they put him up again after the first time.
Yeah, but Adam was screwing it up too. Adam was not. Their plate was bison and it was squab and snapper.
Yes. And the squab apparently, like, squab is distinctive, but
it's gamey, but it's
not. It can be, and I suppose, like, and this was in a taco.
Yeah,
where you have probably other flavors kind of interfering. Really, nobody did very well getting the squab. I think for the red team, it was like, oh, what could it be that like, we've pretty much eliminated everything else.
Well, who did well in this challenge, and unfortunately only got to do one plate, was Cody. And I never thought I would say this from the first premiere, but I wanted people to shut up and listen to Cody. And
you know what? Cody has been the last, maybe this episode for sure, and the last episode, like, Corey, I think he was either edited to look kind of terrible from the beginning, but as it turns out, he kind of just speaks his mind, and 90% of the time he's right.
Yeah.
Like,
he made Adam look bad, honestly, because on the Cody had the first plate in this challenge, and Adam is far away from the plate, and he's like, it's clams, and Cody's the one doing the tasting, and he's like, it's not, it's mussels. You don't know what you're talking about, but they brought back clams, and they got it wrong, and so, like, it's like, Adam, you maybe let Cody, and then Cody was the one on the sideline being like, it's snapper, the food is snapper, and they just,
and meanwhile, somebody else, I think Amber, is like, there's no way that's snapper. And Cody's like, it's totally snapper. And nobody is listening.
No.
And they pick everything besides the snapper.
Yeah. And no one was paying attention to the color system, which was honestly was so frustrating, because if you would put the food down on this glowing platform, and if it turned green, you got them both right. If it turned red, you got neither of them right. And if it turned blue, you got one of them right. And apparently the guys did not bother, or like maybe they were all colorblind.
Well, I was going to say, now I did wonder that, because I don't know, they say that, and I'm going to get this statistic wrong, but it's a very high percentage, maybe as much as 80% of men suffer from some form of color blindness. And there are 3 or 4 varieties. Like, it doesn't mean you can't see any color, though. Just for some that's true, but differentiating like reds, blues, and greens is often, the gist of it. So it's possible. I mean,
I like your science. I think they were just being dumb. I'm gonna blame this on their brains not working well, because there was one where Adam and Declan brought over snapper and some other thing, and they got blue, and then they took both dishes back. And I'm just like, no, remove one, and then process of elimination. Come on, Adam.
Which one do you think it probably wasn't? Yeah, I know.
And meanwhile, Cody's there being like, it's snapper, and Declan's just like coming over to the court and being like, I don't know, maybe it's flounder again. And I just wanted to die during this whole segment. It was just, they were such a dopey bad team, and I didn't like to be mad at Adam, but it was like, Adam.
And it's kind of funny, because the red team, it's not like they were stellar at it, but they were good at the game part. Like, in the end, it was just like, just pick up a protein and throw it. Just keep switching proteins until you get it right. Like, if you don't know.
And maybe like
that didn't work.
Like, even Adam, well, like, at the end, I was just like, why are you guys just sauntering back over to this wall of meat? Like, it's a timed competition. Yeah. What's happening?
15 seconds left. What the heck are you doing?
My brain was
I don't know.
It was not a good look for Adam. And I was concerned, because it was like, if you're tripping up in this competition, and then if you have a bad service, well, like, that might put you on the hook.
Well, and at this point, like, the red team has 6 people. And the blue team is already down by 1, because they have 5.
Yeah.
So the blue team couldn't afford to lose service today.
And Cody's doing well. Mark has gotten out of the way.
Mark has just sort of slid into his little hole.
Gotten a lot better since Mark has disappeared. And it was very enraging watching that. So the guys lost. And also on the blue team is Amber. And Amber and the whole team are having this tiff because
well, Amber's having insecurities and having a hard time still adjusting to how the blue team works. Because she came from a team where, they work together. Yeah. They supported each other.
More than a little mansplaining going on the blue team, though, too.
And I was going to say, and she walks into a room of men. Now, I don't know. I had thoughts about this because, she comes in and sounds really insecure about it. Like she freaks out because she thinks they're maybe having a meeting without her. And the red team doesn't help because they're like, well, the three of them went outside. They said they were going to have a cigarette. Cody doesn't smoke. So obviously, conspiracy.
Part of the problem when there's only 5 members on the team, too, is that if 3 of them hang out, that's over half the team.
Yeah, it's a majority. Right.
So it's like inherently with that few amount. It's like if you're on a team of 3 and 2 of those people are best friends, well, one of them's going to feel uncomfortably left out.
Right.
And they're very mansplaining where they're like, no, listen, your problem is that you're too much on the red team. You need to be a part of our team.
Yeah. And well, even Adam is like, she needs to stop playing both teams. She needs to be fully on the blue team. And I was like, well, you need to fully, like, part of it for me is like, I think they needed to fully embrace her on the blue team. Like, yes. I mean, she was at a disadvantage in the first place because Ramsey shoves her over there.
Yeah.
And, they're having a hard time as it is, let alone, trying to get along with somebody that they don't really know and haven't worked with. And I don't feel like they made quite an effort.
No, early on. And like, she was a little bristly at first because I remember that first interaction she had with Adam when they were like talking to her about like, oh, calm down. And she's like, I just don't like losing.
Yeah. Well, and at the time they were kind of a crappy squad over there.
And she kind of made her point known that it was like, you guys lose a lot. I would rather not. But he and her, and which is interesting, again, Adam and Amber, he said that he knew her from before this. They are not getting along at all. And their punishment for losing that match was they had to do all of the crab cake work. So they had to take apart all these crabs, do all the ingredients.
They had to shell 40 pounds of crab and prep everything to make 200 crab cakes. I think.
Which, by the way, Amber's allergic to shellfish.
Shellfish, right?
Her issues with seafood last week make a little bit more sense. It kind of tracks that if you're allergic to shellfish, it's maybe not something you cook.
Yeah, although she was cooking a lot of fish that weren't shellfish.
That's
I don't
true.
remember. Like, if it was scallops, it was shellfish.
Yeah,
but it's not like they're cooking a lot of shrimp and crab and.
That's true. But I'm wondering if that's just kind of, that explains a little bit why last week.
Everybody screws up the fish station. Like, that is like the place to screw up. I mean, even today.
Why did they Paul Frederick, wonder who he is, cool guy. Why did they not cook any crab cakes during dinner service? That's a good question. They had enough crab this episode. I think maybe that's why.
People were too crabby.
The show were like, if we put any more crab in this episode, we will have to rename this show Krabby Patties.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe they needed it for brunch.
Maybe they were brunch crab cakes.
Maybe they had a catering gig. These are the things they don't tell us. These things. It doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter.
But anyway, so Lauren, so Adam is, Adam and Amber are working on their stuff, and Amber's kind of being harumphy about stuff and talking about, and Adam's being quiet, and she's like, Adam, you're being quiet right now. And he's like,
she's like, can we work together as a team? Can we do this? I just feel like we're not together. Yeah. And Declan said something like, just get on the blue team side, and like, we all have your backs. And then she's like, what about you, Adam? Like, why aren't you saying anything? And he's like, I like talking when it's meaningful.
Yeah, which is, I mean, I get what he's saying there, but like, it can't not come off.
It came off pretty badly. Yeah.
It came off
kind of like, this conversation is not important.
Yeah, not even like I don't want to say something that's going to hurt somebody. More like I don't want to talk because this conversation's stupid and I don't want to be a part of it.
Well, it sort of felt like one of those conversations that sometimes I guess they would portray it in the movies where there's a woman talking to a man and the man just shuts down and is like not communicating. And meanwhile, the woman is talking and talking. And there's this sort of technique where you just make them feel stupid for talking so much instead of talking, like having the conversation.
Yeah.
That's a little what it felt like. But I also feel like Amber did come off as pretty insecure. And I don't know, I was torn because on the one hand, I think she makes a point. Like she just wanted to be like, know that she was part of the team.
Yeah.
But you very, very seldom like walk into a kitchen as a woman and find a whole team of other women, which is what the red team had been. Yeah. Like typically you walk into a kitchen and you're probably the only woman like there. I mean, like in a stereotypical kitchen. So you can't tell me that she hasn't run up against this, you know? Mm-hmm. And that seems like that's what you have to function with, whether it's fair or right or, you know, good or bad, you know, that's just kind of how kitchens are. And I think this did illustrate why it's hard for women in kitchens, because women are communicators, you know, and want to work together a certain way. And men are like, well, we're working together. This is how we work. Like we grunt, we know what we're saying to each other. Like, you know, you just learn
women and communication skills a little bit later in this episode. Because this is where Adam says he's not here to make friends line, which I was like, oh snap, Adam's gone full reality show. Mm-hmm. The ultimate line. And this was around the time when also I guess like the most heated moment of the show happens, but in a different kind of way. Cyan drops by the kitchen, and apparently Cyan was really into Adam.
Or something. I don't know. I couldn't figure out if she was just trying to like distract him off.
Yeah.
Completely make fun. But she's like talking about his like sexy crab and yeah.
It was an odd moment. And then Adam's like, for some odd reason, big black woman love me. And these are things we know now.
Awkward. It just felt awkward.
On to service.
Dinner service.
Yeah. Adam is on fish because he says he's on fish because it always gets screwed up and he wants to take it over. Doesn't want it to get screwed up. And Adam, you doom yourself when you say things like that because, of course, he immediately screws up the scallops.
And everybody's which is funny because Adam does know how to cook scallops, but apparently was feeling a little too full of it, like, and walks away. And meanwhile, his scallops, and you could see, like, I did look at the plate because I'm like, well, how bad do these look? And they were pretty unbrown on the one side and like brown, probably an eighth of an inch through on the other. So they like way too brown on the one side.
Yeah. So. He went to a fridge to pick up some ingredients, and while he was gone, Chef Ramsay was just like, "What is happening to these blimey scallops? I'm a British man." And nothing got thrown. There was no food confetti tonight.
But he did lay into Adam, and was like,
"What are you doing? Getting away from your scallops like this? What are you thinking?" And after, I mean, this is about where I was nervous that maybe this was the week that Adam would get kicked off. Because he did bad in that, taste test challenge. He's not getting along with Amber, and now he's screwing up scallops.
True.
It wasn't looking great, and it would suck for him to get voted off after essentially his first bad week. He's been so consistent throughout
the show. Which is the only reason why I thought that's probably not the case.
Yeah.
Because typically, like, this show is pretty, like, you kind of know it's coming.
Yeah.
I feel like they give people a couple of chances to really screw up where the audience feels justified when somebody gets kicked off generally, No
one's been good. I've been like, oh, that person showed so much potential. Everyone on the show who's left so far have been like, yeah, that tracks.
Yeah. But now that he's messed up and has actually, garnered the rage of the rage, I don't know. Like Like that's a thing. So he can't chalk up too many of those, or yes, he will go. Because if they don't nominate him, Ramsay will nominate him.
Yeah.
So
there's a tally in his book now. And there's just not that many team members on that team.
no.
So, there's not that many people to choose from. If the blue team had lost tonight, he would probably it would probably be him against Amber. And I mean, unless the Mark resentment's still holding true.
Which they didn't. Because the blue team actually, after that initial foul up, which, I guess Adam was the only one to really screw up on the blue team. Am I remembering this correctly?
Confused with her meat, if I remember. She was like, or there was some tension about when she should take her meat up and if she liked the sear on it. And there was a little bit of tension about that. And she brought it up.
Tension because she was like, no, I have to refire this. It's soggy. It doesn't have a good crust on it, which is absolutely true. Like if you're putting up a steak, you can't put up a soggy steak. I mean, even if it's cooked well the other way, like it's got to have that exterior caramelization. And she was like, I'm doing it again. And meanwhile, I don't remember, it was like Declan or someone who's like, no, just put it up. Like, let's just go. And she's like, no, it's not the best.
Like, you're fine. It's fine. Just put the food up. And she's like, it's not good. I'm not going to put it up there. And she follows her own heart. And she, instead of getting it from Ramsay, he's like, best looking steak I've seen. Excellent work. Good job. And from there on out, I think that kind of humbled Declan. And I think the team it made her confidence go up. And the team kicked butt after that. They were locked in.
I did notice this. Did you watch? So I was kind of watching because Adam and Amber had gotten into it at the beginning of the service.
Yeah.
Where they're sort of, and maybe during the crab deal. I don't know how the whole timeline went. And then they had the little kerfluffle about whether they should put the steak up or not. And she was insistent that she not put the steak up, which turned out to be a good decision. But when Ramsay was glowing, they sort of panned back over to Adam and he was looking a little snarly about it.
Ooh.
So, and I thought to myself, really? Like now you're gonna get like, because he basically told her, they all kind of told her, just do your best and earn it. And let's just work as a team. It'll be fine. Just get in there and do it and do your best.
And like,
that's her best. And I feel like, see, that's what you told her to do. She just went and did it.
Yeah. And I wonder if a little bit of that for Adam was like, if she's doing well, that's one less person that I am at. Like, I think he knew he was having a bad week. Yeah. And, if she cooks an incredible steak, well, that makes it a lot harder to send someone home over him. So I do wonder if there was a little bit of like competition, like, oh crap, it's me. I'm the weak link right
Yeah.
But as it turns out, the weak link was the entire red team. It's funny that we've talked so much about communication because they could not communicate for the lives of them this week. Cyan kept screwing up her salmon.
Cyan kept burning her salmon skin, which was interesting. Literally, like she keeps holding up salmon, and you can tell it's like this is black. No, that one's black. Now, how is this one better? Like, can we put that one up? Is it less black? And it's like, if your salmon is black, it's probably not good.
And imagine being a diner at Hell's Kitchen, and you look into the kitchen area, and you see the chef just like holding up your salmon. He's like, what's this look like to you? Does this look good? Like in her hands, just like holding it like an iPhone, just being like, how's this look? Like I would be like, I'm gonna order the steak. I'm gonna take some.
So she really, really had a tough time on the salmon. And overall, like they were just goofed up. I mean, people, and it was a little bit tough to tell among the rest of them who was really screwing up. Because Jordan tends to have these really weird phases where she just does weird stuff and seems to be kind of
in her own world,
zoned out. And and she's pulling out like lamb and steaks, I think, like way before the rest of the meal is done. And then blaming it on Corey for not calling the right timing. And I couldn't actually determine that was actually the case. Like, I felt like she messed up and she was just passing the blame.
Yeah, and it wouldn't. Maybe I'd believe Jordan more about Corey calling out the wrong times if Jordan didn't have multiple episodes now having a hard time communicating in the kitchen and not being on the same page with people with dishes, because she was bringing stuff up. She was bringing up like rack of lamb or whatever, and they're like, "This is 2 orders from now. Like, what is this doing up here?" She has had continuous issues with communication, and Corey, for her faults with food, and she did undercook some French fries tonight. Mm-hmm. For her faults with cooking, and she's not done great in the kind of separate cooking challenges. She's a big communicator in the kitchen. I've talked about how she seems like the leader in the red team solely because she takes over so much of that communication that no one else kind of does. So I kind of have to assume that it's Jordan here screwing up just based on what we've seen before.
Yeah. Well, and that's why it was a little hard to tell, but that's immediately where my brain went, is like, no, I think you screwed that up. and it was so obvious. They just kept screwing up. And finally Ramsey is like, no, you guys get out of here. Go find 2 people to eliminate. And actually brought the blue team over to finish service, which apparently went swimmingly.
Yeah, Ramsey called it the best service he'd seen in a while. And it was like, good job, Adam.
And the red team did not do the best job of, I think they talked a couple of times about how the theme of the episode was accountability. Mm-hmm. And they get back in the ring and, they're like, okay, who messed up what? Let's go over this. And right away, Cyan was like, okay, this is about accountability. I messed up on the fish station. I'm going to own that. You can put me up, whatever. I had a bad day, but I called it. And I was like, you go. I think that's legit. Although you never see people putting themselves up typically.
No.
But I think that was fair. I think she saw that, and I felt like that is a really good, honest evaluation. Like, you're able to self-evaluate and be like, no, I was the problem. Mm-hmm. But then, nobody else wants to admit, even though that kitchen was a disaster, that they screwed up. I was like, what's going on?
Yeah. Well, and even Ramsey called them out on that because they eventually put up Cyan and Corey because they blamed Corey for communication in the fries. And Ramsey, for the second time this season, is like, nope, veto. Wrong, incorrect. And he replaces with Jordan, which honestly I think is the right choice. I mean, Jordan, for 3 weeks now, has struggled to communicate in the kitchen, and she wasn't owning up to the fact that she could communicate in the kitchen. So,
which I think is a really deep. I mean, it's one thing to not be able to cook fish, or to make food. That's a really basic thing. But there's kind of something going on a deeper level when you're screwing up because you can't listen or hear or communicate with other people. It's just as bad.
Yeah, that's a foundational kitchen problem that you're having. That's not I had a bad day cooking. I think Corey was right. She was like, really, you're going to send me home over an order of bad French fries? When Jordan has been bad in the kitchen and hurt the entire kitchen in the process. Though I think it was very obvious. They tried the juke move again at the end of the show with the elimination. They tried juking and being like, Jordan, get back into line. Cyan, you're gone. And I was like, they're not going to get rid of it. They're going to get rid of Cyan. Cyan has been a fairly weak link chef who kept picking up salmon very awkwardly.
Yeah. I did find myself being torn today, and only because Cyan and she's had a lot of screw ups, know,
the highs have been high, the lows have been low.
But her ability to admit it and to just sort of be that forward facing, as opposed to Jordan, who sat there I don't know. I felt like she just was making shit up and being really defensive and kind of lying on the stand, oh no, I can be better. Well, you haven't been better either. I don't know. I was a little torn because I think I just liked Cyan better in this episode and wanted her to leave less. But overall, it probably was a good call,
I think if Jordan is around for another week, I'd be stunned. I think she's got maybe 1 or 2 more weeks in her, but I think she seems very clearly next on the chopping block.
Mm-hmm.
If I had to
I just sort of think they could have made that happen this week. just saved a lot of pain and agony.
It's obvious there's tiers of people on the show, and like Jordan, Lauren, and I would like arguably Nikki, and then maybe on the other team, Mark, just because he's bad presence in the kitchen overall. Like there are tiers of people on the show, and I think Jordan is in that next to go tier.
I would agree.
Yeah,
I agree. So the red team should hope that they don't lose again, because that will be a fairly easy.
Or at least Jordan.
And I don't know. I just don't get a good pulse on Lauren.
No,
she has a good show, but she hasn't seemed to excel at anything.
No, she only shows up on the show when she's screwing up. You never see her doing anything well.
No. So which probably means she's fine. You're probably a great line cook. I don't know.
Maybe she's good on garnish. I don't know. As always, do you have any final thoughts on this week's episode?
Well, I did think. Okay, so the ending of the show was pretty funny, because usually, it's like people get kicked off. Cyan leaves. She puts up her coat. She's been the only one so far to thank Gordon Ramsay and be like, okay, thank you, and move on. Hey, this is a good experience. I'm leaving, right? Without saying something snarky.
Yeah.
But then they get back and Corey is like, bitches, you're on your own. No more team. I am winning this, and I'm winning this without you. And then Adam is like, yeah, the red team, they're so weak. I'm just going to pop them off one at a time.
I want to be like, Adam, getting so sassy in a week that you were not great. So
they really set this up as it's getting down to brass tacks. And as the pool gets smaller, the competition gets higher. Which.
And I will be interested next week. Chef Ramsay gets a call or whatever, and he calls them. And I wonder if this is around the time that they start melding the teams together.
I hope so. That it's about time for that.
Or if they start letting them have separate services or something like that, or really putting these people on an island. Because I think it's getting to that time where you got to start analyzing individuals' abilities.
Well, and I think it's about time they shake things up, because it's obvious that both of the teams, even though the red team had trouble today, both of the teams have found ways of working together. And I think really to test them, they need to throw people around a little and make them uncomfortable again. Yeah. And I'm predicting that's going to happen soon. And that'll screw everything up, and a bunch of people will mess up who weren't messing up before. And
hopefully not Adam.
hopefully, because Adam's talking shit this episode. So, and that's dangerous. I just feel like the minute you start talking smack, I don't know, usually bad shit happens.
You tempt the reality gods, and they are fickle. Those reality.
They are fickle. Indeed.
Yeah. Everybody who watched this recap with us tonight and watched with us, you can read our full recap on Milwaukee tomorrow morning. You can find it there. You can also find a lot of great food content from our own Lori Frederick on Milwaukee.com. You wrote an awesome piece about the new Ashley's Barbecue restaurant.
Yeah, just called Q.
Just called Q.
Because it's not actually a barbecue restaurant. He's going to show off his other cooking skills. There's going to be pasta, and I love it because it's in the, and I always want to say this wrong, the Harambe. See, the Harambe neighborhood.
Yeah,
I was wanting to put the accent on the wrong syllable.
Very much,
and they have needed a good sit-down restaurant there for quite some time. So I don't know. We'll see how this goes. I'll be excited. They're probably opening March, April.
And you posted an awesome piece about the recent presidential city hall and how that impacted restaurants in the area. And it's a really great piece if you want to know the local effects of something like that, regardless of your politics. which I think is what I really liked about the
Well,
piece.
and it kind of like, it doesn't matter what you thought about what Biden said. What was happening on the back end is that Milwaukee fought really hard to get that town hall here, because that town hall was going to be in the Midwest, but there were 5 or 6 cities vying for it. So kudos. And also kudos, no matter how you feel about Gary Witt, like he fought, he got that contract. They do have a history of working with CNN, so that probably helped. But then they also got the money from CNN to feed all of the CNN people, plus all the local people who actually set up the theater, which they were here for 7 days.
Yeah.
And
set up a precedent.
That was a significant amount of food. And they did it all up. Like there were a bunch of restaurants that did food and a bunch of restaurants that made money off of food. So like we didn't get the DNC, which would have been like, 100 times more than that. But getting CNN for the town hall, like,
it was an awesome
money into the market.
It was a great payday for restaurants in a time when there aren't a lot of big paydays out there right now. So you can read all about that from Lori. And also she has a new fish fry guide, which is very important to note because it is officially
Lent.
It's Lent o'clock, everybody. So no meat tomorrow. Fish it up. If you want to know where to get great ones, Lori's got an awesome list and links to all of her thank God it's Friday pieces. So definitely check all of that out. And keep reading on Milwaukee.com. We got a bunch of cool stuff.
Cheers to that.
Cheers.
And here's to Friday. New day tomorrow. Great. Awesome.
I'm out of wine, which means we're out of video. Bye, everybody.